it going to mess up? I said, I hope it doesn't. But, you know, going back into those people who don't know you, you have been in the leadership realm for over 20 years. You're an expert in facilitation with leadership, management, everything to do with it. And you've worked with, you know, anyone from the Fortune 100s to startups, entrepreneurs. We've worked with military, college programs, athletic programs, nonprofit. And when I look at how you show up in this world, you know, you're the visionary, you're the one that has strategy, you're the one that interrupts people, you love to dig, you love to ask the hard questions. And I'm just grateful that you said yes, and I'm grateful to actually partner with you within Driven Leadership. So thank you.
You're getting all mushy.
That's me, I'm the heart. So as we go into this, I just, you know, how did you start in the leadership industry? What got you into this?
Oh, well, first off, excited to be here. Yeah, I did say no to doing this because there's some self-serving. It's our company and it's kind of a weird spot, but just absolutely blown away with what you've done with this, what's come out of it, and the kind of ripple and impact that's going on with this. So I'm excited to be a part of it. And before I even jump in, there's a couple people. So Sophia, Misty, Renee, hi, good to see you. What was the question?
Oh my gosh,
just kidding. So, you know, I got getting into leadership. That wasn't on purpose. I mean, that was actually because a lot of things went wrong in my life. Is how I wound up delivering, teaching, working in leadership, and you know, I started. My mom always jokes with me. I started my first business when I was like, I think it was 12, right? It wasn't really a business, but I took. She had this giant pile of cookbooks sitting in the house, and I threw them all in my backpack one day, and I went door to door and sold cookbooks for $2 because I wanted like some money or something. I don't know, but I've always been that way. Like, I get excited about business. As I got older, you know, I started my first real business in my lower 20s, straight out of college, and it went decent. I mean, you know, learning and growing through that, and along the way, I met the mother of my son, my previous wife, and that didn't go so well. You know, I didn't know a lot about people. I didn't know a lot about relationships. I was in my lower 20s, and I mean, she's an amazing woman, but she's not the right one for me. Thank God I found you. But
practice wife.
Yeah, practice wife. And in all that turmoil and the divorce and everything that was going on, I said, you know what, I need to get to a place that's healthy for me so I can start to build my mental skill, because I felt like it was weak. I felt like, you know, when I worked in a company, I always had this kind of strong, abrasive kind of personality, and I didn't really understand how that matched with others. And I seemed to create more problems than solutions. And so I started working for a leadership development company, Rapport Leadership. It's where I met you. And man, my life changed. You know, what happened was I grew up around, my parents are amazing, but I didn't grow up around parents that were in anything to do with leadership, not personal growth, not development. They own their own businesses, but they really didn't lead people. And I knew there was more out there, I guess is the right way to put it. And so as I started getting exposed to people who were just pushing themselves, and they have this growth mindset, and they wanted to challenge, and they wanted to find their strengths and abilities and share them with the world. When I got around those people, I got really excited because I found a place where I could learn, I could grow, I could develop, but I could also make a difference. And so I got in, started working for a company, worked in sales, kind of worked my way up to the point where right before we left, we had the opportunity to potentially buy the place, and we chose to open our own business instead. But it's been one heck of a road.
Oh, yes, it has.
Yes, it has.
So how did you start Driven then?
Well, I didn't start Driven. You started Driven. So, see, these are self-serving questions. You know the answer, but for everybody else. So Driven started, we had moved to Southern California, and we knew nobody, and we're still working for rapport leadership, and we were doing things, and I was actually going back and forth every 2 weeks. I was there and then back home, and it was tough. And I remember walking on the beach with you down in Southern California, and you just had this brilliant idea for Driven for Life is what we initially named it, and just going, let's start our own thing, let's make it happen. And I've just always been excited about business in general. I didn't do well working for other people, so it just made sense for me as well. So we started, and I will never forget our very first sale client, because it just kind of rippled through our company for the past 11 or 12 years, our different values, right? So I want the business, the systems, the growth, the development of the business. That's my focus. And you're the heart and the people and the connection. And so, so our first client was a coaching client, and you charged them $50.
I did, for a 10-week program.
And I lost my mind. But I don't know, but I mean, it did get the ball rolling. It got it started. We had to start somewhere, and I mean, I can go on, but that's how we started.
Well, and that goes into, your topic. I asked you, because I let every person choose their topic. It's something that they're passionate about. And we went back and forth. And the first one, we were like, well, you don't get what I'm saying, so obviously that's not my topic. But the topic became the fastest way to the bottom line is in a straight line. And even talking about what you were saying, different values in understanding, you want the systems, you want the business to grow, and I'm the heart, I'm the people. Why is this important? And what does it mean?
Well, okay, so when I say the fastest way to grow your bottom line, which in business, and there are some business leaders that are focused on the top line, with just bringing in revenue, which a lot of times leads to many problems in the business. And so focusing on the bottom, you need both. You do need both. You need the revenue, but you also need, what are we actually taking home with us? What's coming into the business and sticking? And the difference between that top line and bottom line is the efficiency of the business. Well, the efficiency is systems, processes, and people, and the systems and processes are run by people. So it really comes down to your people. And so there's so many businesses that want to grow, and they're stuck. They're doing everything they know how. They're running massive marketing, and you name it. But a lot of times they aren't putting the energy into the people in a way that generates that bottom line. The simple version of this is, this concept of growth versus fixed mindset. And it's a simple concept. It's just, when a fixed mindset it's much more traditional. This is the way we've always done it. There are sacred cows. There are the things we can't touch in the business. There are people that we avoid or we talk to, and there's norms that are just not productive. We see they're not productive, but we're not taking action on fixing them. And the mindset is to kind of act like they're not there, to ignore them, and to keep doing business as normal, because you know what, we're doing okay. And okay is enough. And yet, if all we do is we go and we challenge those norms, if we look at them, we provide a safe place for people to be able to voice their opinion, to feel cared and appreciated, so that when they walk into work, instead of going through the motions, that's what not everybody, but that's what a lot of people do. They show up, their life, they're going through the motions. So they walk into work, or they get up, they have whatever their routine is, right? I get my coffee, I brush my teeth this way, I shower, whatever I need to do. I get dressed, or I don't in Zoom land, and I go through my routine, and that routine does not set them up for a day where they walk into work and they're like, man, I can't wait to be here. I love what I do. I love the people that I work around. I'm excited for the challenges that show up. The mindset seems very much, here I go again. And it's almost like a conveyor belt of being stuck. And there's that saying, you know, most people, you know, physically die in, like, I don't know how the saying goes, but you're the quote person, but somewhere in their 80s, they actually pass away, but they died in their 30s, you know? So the fastest way to the bottom line, in my opinion, is to engage the people, to really get excited about not just the business and what we do, but each other and how we work together. And then knowing we're not there yet, and whatever there is, we're never going to get there. But if we're working on this growth mindset of how do we get better every day? How do we push ourselves? How do we step into something better, new, different, that makes us better? I'm okay to share my ideas. I confront the issues that are in front of me, and I get excited about that. It's just radically different in an organization. And at the end of the day, and again, not being self-promoting, but that's what we do, right? That we go into an organization, and that's why I love what we do, because you can go in, you can see the day-to-day, and our job when it comes down to it is to whatever it takes to turn the lights on. And when the lights come on and you get multiple people, they start to spark each other, and it just erupts the business from the inside out. And you can't stop the growth. It'll grow in areas you never even thought of. It'll go in directions you didn't think of. It'll anyway, I get excited about this.
But what happens if, so this whole pandemic, and we've watched companies, either they have that growth mindset and they're just moving forward and they're creative and they're thinking outside the box, doing things they've never done before. But then you have these leaders in these companies that are still this fearful, you know, this is the way it's always been done, and they're having a hard time moving forward. But they have amazing leaders that work within the organization, yet they're not people focused, and they're so fearful not making budget. How can you help shift them? Like, what can people do to create more of that growth mindset that you're talking about?
Okay, so what you're saying is you've got a company that the top of the company is pretty stuck and stagnant, more fixed. And then within the organization, you got people that are, you know, they're looking to develop, they're in that growth mindset. Is that what you're saying? Well, in my experience, that's a recipe for a big collision, to be honest. So if I'm working underneath that, I'm stuck with one of two choices. It's either I hang my hat on the belief that I can change the top of this company, which I don't know if that's possible, and that's an honest statement. If the top of the company is so stuck, so stagnant that they're dug in, they want to prove that they're right, and this is the way to do it, that's usually the long-term death of the organization. It may not show up right now because they have so many, and the bigger the organization, the slower the death. But we see it all over in business right now, where people are hanging so tightly to this is the way we've always done it. And it's, I mean, Fry's just closed, huge organization, Fry's Electronics, right? And they had a system, and I haven't done the case study, I haven't dug into it yet at the depth I could, but it is very clear, at least from the outside looking in, that they didn't change what was going on. You know, in 2008, the culture changed where it became very customer centric and very, how do I connect and build trust with the client? And every time I went into a Fry's Electronics, I didn't feel that, you know, and what, that's been 10 years. And so it doesn't shift. Were there good people in the organization? Absolutely. Good people in the organization wind up having to make a decision. Can I change the top of the company? Will we make a shift? Do I believe, are they painting a future that looks bright and hopeful, or I need to leave and go somewhere else? There's really no, the middle ground is really painful. I want to grow, but the company doesn't want to grow, and I don't have the power and ability to shift this. If you can't influence that, then you usually are left with that type of a decision. If you're at the top of those type of companies and you're seeing it and you see the great people, well, you do have the influence. And then it's about, how do I take this idea and thought and start influencing my peers and influencing those that are underneath me?
You could still have, and we've seen this working with different, you know, whether it's a college university or, you know, different companies where maybe the entire leadership doesn't have that, but you have these pockets of amazing leaders who influence their teams, and they can't just go places. I mean, we're in the midst still of a pandemic, and they're whatever reason, maybe they're still bought into the vision, can they still, or what can they do to impact and have a people focused mindset? How can they create that?
So you're saying for those people that are kind of stuck in the middle, haven't jumped ship yet, and are going, how do I shift this?
Right. Because sometimes it's easier said than done, but they can still influence.
Sure. Okay. The influence, I'm just talking on a bigger scale, right? You haven't, anyway, if you're in that position and you want to make an influence, you control your space. How do you show up? I remember this, gosh, you would know the names better than I would, but there's always a story that sticks out to me of it. It was a teacher who went through our bowl class, and it was a traditional school, right? She was working with elementary kids, I believe.
Yes.
Right? What was her name?
It was Rowe, Miss Rowe.
Miss Rowe. Okay, so she have a first name?
Oh my gosh,
Okay.
last, yeah.
Miss Rowe.
We keep on the last names, and all that's what sticks in my mind.
So it was a traditional school the way I understood it, right? They ran class just normal, everything like that. And she came out and she started engaging her particular classroom, right? She started really, they did circles where they, kind of got everybody engaged. They started working on that growth mindset. They brought in very experiential type of a classroom that she shifted to, but it was a very can-do, share your thoughts, ideas. I know we saw some video on this and it was really cool what she was doing, right? She just radically made that shift. And then her classroom had a massive change. I mean, the engagement, the attendance, the just, and I don't even know how you score kindergartners, but she was getting amazing results within that. And that led to other teachers in the organization picking that up, taking it. So that example works in business. It's the exact same thing. So you can make an impact. I'm just saying at some point that impact, if you make a big enough impact, you show up big enough, you work well with your team, you do something different with your group, you engage them differently, great. You're going to pull a spotlight to what's going on. And one of two things are going to happen based on the leadership of the organization. They're going to put the spotlight on and they're going to go, this is awesome. How do we duplicate this? And they'll bring you in, right? Or they're going to go, this is a threat to the way we do it. And they're going to push you out. And that's all I was saying. It depends on the leadership and can you influence, but you got to do the best you can with the team that you have and what controls you do have. Yeah, you got to kill it.
Yeah. It was Tanya Rowe.
Tanya, thank you.
Thank you, Mick. Thank you, Mick. Michael, he was saying, owners need to understand that they are building a team first, a business second, and a bottom line will be a reflection of the quality of the team you've built, people before profits. Absolutely. I just read there in 1994 when the Major League Baseball players went on strike. So all these trading card manufacturers just were tanking. And Pinnacle was the only company, the top manufacturer, they said, we are not going to lay people off. And so they turned it actually over to their employees and they said, we need to make up $40 million. And the CEO said, I'm not saving your jobs. You're going to save your jobs. And the team absolutely rallied together. In fact, there was a custodian who they just started searching, how can we save it? He goes, we're spending over $50,000 in soda pop. So they cut that expense. Finance, they found a way to streamline trademarking and they saved $100,000. Someone in the PR, they actually put out to the Olympics and they sold pens for $20 million. And in this entire time with the Major League Strike, they were the only top manufacturing that never lost revenue and they never lost their people. And I really believe that this is what you're talking about, is that it's the culture, right? It's the culture that when the leadership is bought in and they understand it's the people that will help drive it, but they have to fire the passion and they have to fire the vision within the people.
Yeah. That's why rarely when we work with a company, rarely do we successfully come in from kind of a mid-manager or down level. Because when we get into an organization and they're in that, we can impact their teams. We can impact their teams. However, when we connect with the top of the organization and, those that don't know, when we have a new organization we're working with, we do a little litmus test, right? We in the initial meetings, we're kind of getting their mindset. Are they focused on development and growth and can they get better? Or are they focused on their people need to get better because they're fine? And anytime it's the people need to get better and they're fine, it's usually a deal breaker right from the beginning. We can't shift the culture without the top really wanting to connect and do something different. And they'll say they want to do something different. That's where it gets confusing, right? So top of the company, you know, if you're sitting at the top of a company, you're probably saying, I want it different. I want it better. You're saying all those things, but in the next sentence, a lot of times it goes, I want it better. I just wish they would be better. I just wish they would do this. And that's not the order of things. The order of things is, I got to be better. I've got to do this. I've got to set the tone. I've got to be authentic and vulnerable and say I messed up so that we can draw a line in the sand and move forward. And I think that last piece is really hard for a lot of leaders, you know, because if you've got damage in the organization, you know, we haven't led well, or something's gone wrong, or it's, man, you're working with family. Gosh, those are the toughest kind of it, right? And you've got all these things that have happened in the organization. The only way to move past that is to address them. You know, what a lot of times people do is they go, oh, well, yeah, all this negative things happen, but we want to be a new company. Well, you can't move forward without addressing the past so that people can trust again. People can say it's going to be different, and they start to believe it, and they see actions that connect with it. They're willing to move forward.
So the bigger picture then is the culture. Like, you have to be able to shift the culture, the mindset, to create change, right?
Yeah, I mean, but the culture and the mindset are connected, right? So the one we're in control of, the one that shifts first, is the mindset. And then from the mindset shifting, then the culture starts to move. Culture is a mixture of personalities, behaviors, the way we do things. I mean, it's kind of squishy to get your hands around. You go, we're going to change the culture. What are you really saying? And so it's so many different things, it's hard to grasp. And so when we boil it down to, if I want to change the culture, the first thing I can do, the first target, is I change myself. And when we've got a leader, and that's why, again, self-promotion, but that's why BOLD is so just badass for what it does, because you can go in there. If you have that mindset really matters in that class. But if I go into BOLD and I go, I want to shift from where I am to someplace better. You may not even have that defined yet. And you go into BOLD, you can do it in 2.5 days and walk out different, in a different way that you choose in the direction you want. And then you go back in and you start working with your company with a different mindset, and you watch how it impacts. You watch what goes on. People are going to go, why are you different? What's taking place? And you know, a lot of people go, oh, I went to this training. It's not that you went to the training. The training was a tool. It's that your mindset shifted, and you took a dramatic step. You pushed yourself really hard, and that's just a process to get you where you were going to go. It's just going to take longer. And so the hard part is, how do you get a leader? And a lot of times when we rise up in an organization, we start to have an ego about us. We start to believe we don't stink, start to believe I know all the answers. And as soon as a leader gets there, we're on our way down. It's actually, the more successful we get, it typically should connect with the more I don't know. Right? Because I'm becoming more aware. I'm understanding. I interact with people and I'm messing them up more and more. How those interactions go. How do I get better? And the better I get, then there's another level. And it just never ends when it comes to people and leadership.
So in regards to people and leadership, and you've had the opportunity to lead many companies, where have you failed? Like, learning this lesson, because we can't teach it if we don't know it.
Well, great question. Well, it's all how you look at it, but I would say in every aspect of everything I've done has a nice big slap of failure with it, but it's all how you look at it, right? You can go with the cliche, these failures are really successes because they lead to something, and I get all that. But more tangibly, let's see. There have been several big failures along the way that I learned a great deal from, but I actually want to take one that's more specific, and I go into how we started Driven and how 12 years from now with an amazing product and what's going on, we're not a lot bigger. I mean, I look at a lot of those things and I go, man, where did we misstep? And I put a lot of that on me, and so it connects to all of this. So within Driven, you know, our kind of, for those that don't know, our story, we started this, we're working for another company, we came in, and our first year in business, we had a contract with this other company that was a great contract. We supplied things they couldn't do, and we were kind of their go-to person for organizational development and different leadership items. And then they got a CEO that could fill all those gaps, and we were kicked out. So we had no income. Literally, that was our only client, and we were doing that. We had no income. At the same time, you got really sick, had stomach issues and all that, and we're down for a couple of years. And in that time period, you know, the first couple of years as a leader, I froze. I mean, I was selling some things here and there, but I was terrified. I mean, I couldn't figure out kind of what our niche was. I couldn't figure out what products we were going to offer. I couldn't figure out how to develop the things. I didn't have any people. I like to delegate and lead people, and I was doing all of it. And it was just, you know, you were in and out of hospitals, and I was like banging my head against the wall. And I remember distinctly, I don't know, we're 3-4 years in, and you were getting better. Like you were moving in a better direction. And all of a sudden I was seeing how you were working, and I was like, oh, wait, that's how we get things done. I'm like, she just takes action and, you know, whatever. And I remember having this moment of complete, just feeling like a massive failure, like just self-defeated, depressed, shut down. I mean, all those emotions, and I couldn't start. I couldn't move. I was almost paralyzed in that space. And interesting enough, I couldn't see it at the time. So, and this is, I don't even know if this is the question you're asking, but it's, for me, when I was there and I put that right at rock bottom, I started, you're the one, you know, you got to have people in your life that you can, you know, that you look up to. And you in that moment were it. You know, you got all this pain and things going wrong with your body. You're in and out of hospitals. You have no energy. I mean, it was horrible. And yet you're like, I got to get this proposal out, and I gotta, and I was like, no, I'll do it, you know, but you just would take action, and you just, no matter what, you'd put your nose down and you keep going. And it taught me, I didn't know how to do that. You know, I didn't know, especially in a work environment, I especially me doing it. I knew how to delegate and get other people to do it, but I didn't know how to personally do it. And so I leaned on you for that. I started watching inspirational videos. I started watching, you know, TED Talks, and I started reading books, which I'd done before, but I really started diving in. I started to realize that the more I could influence me from the outside in through the failure, the more I could start to shift and move. And it took some time. But what I take away from that, because you know what, that's not been our only failure in the business. That's not been our only bump. And there's been so many more, but that lesson, you loop it into what's going on and how much our business has taken off now. And I know we got a long way to go, but there's been so many positives that have happened, but it all comes back to that, where instead of going into this major shutdown, which I say all this because I think of my family, I think of close friends of mine, I think of a lot of leaders I've met along the way, and that's the one. That's the one. When it gets so hard that you don't know how to get out of it, that's when most people quit. And that's the exact time not to quit. I know that now, but I didn't know that then, right? The only reason I didn't quit is because you wouldn't quit. You wouldn't quit. You're like, we're supposed to have this message and do these great things in the world. And I'm like, yeah, but did you see our bank account? You know? I just read a book, a little short book called The Dip by Seth Godin, and it talks about this. And it's like, it talks about when to quit. And when you quit, if you believe you're doing something that you can be the best in the world at, and you're targeted towards that, and you're moving in the right direction, he's like, there's never a time to quit. There's not. And that's just what you resign to. It's like, this is what I'm doing. There's no quit. And when that becomes the attitude, when that's truly the attitude, when there is no quit, then there is no fail. There's literally, there are obstacles, there are bumps, it sucks, but we move through them. When there's an inkling of doubt, when there's the possibility that I might not want to keep doing this, that maybe I'm not that committed, then quitting becomes an option. And as soon as it becomes an option, it will get tough enough. You will get tested enough to where that's the right option. And so what I liked about what Seth Godin was saying is that basically, if this is, he didn't use these words, but if you're passionate and you believe you can be the best in the world and you've embarked on this endeavor, you don't quit until you reach whatever the finish line you set up is. However, if you don't believe you can be the best in the world, if you're not passionate about it, you shouldn't start. So if you started that, you should be looking at the other side. That's what he suggests. I think that fits.
So can people have passion, then lose it with discouragement? And then how do they restoke it if it was already there?
Well, yes, of course. And that's why the best in the world part, if I'm striving and believe I can get there and be the best in the world at something, then the passion's going to come and go. I mean, at least that's been my experience, you know, and we're more talking now about like running a business, right? Or it could be, I guess it could be working in a job as well. But if the passion goes, it's going to come back, or you're not focused on something that really matters to you. I guess those are kind of jostle.
How do people get the passion back?
Yeah, like I said before, you cheat, right? You lean on others. You don't. People go, well, it's all supposed to be in me. I'm just supposed to be able to persevere through everything. No, we don't do this life alone. For me, you started it, and then I'm like, I'm going to watch videos. I'm going to read books. The beauty behind what we do is I get to go meet with amazing leaders. I walk in, I see their business, I see what they're doing. I learn something new every day. So just connecting with that for me was great, but there's so many resources in today's world. It's outside of us when we get there, you know? So when I'm down, when I'm hurt, when I'm defeated, when I'm depressed, if I go look inward in that moment, it's dark. It's not a fun place to sit in. So what do? Go look outward. And I guess the danger there, right, is if I'm feeling dark inside and I'm feeling failure, then a lot of times instead of looking for people who are successful that I can connect with, that can bring me up, what I do is I look for people that are worse than me so that I feel better. And that's dangerous, right? That's the Jerry Springer syndrome. I'm dating myself. That was an old show, but it's like, right? It's if I go watch someone doing worse, or I want them to do worse to make myself feel better, it actually gets us darker on the inside. It just doesn't feel that way. It's just like a short-term fix. So it's go where you see somebody elevated, where something, go to church, go to TED Talks, go wherever you feel that it connects for you, and let it raise your lid, as you always talk about, raise the lid, right? Let them bring you up and from the outside. And you know what? It doesn't happen overnight. It's not like I watch a TED Talk and I'm like, or YouTube video, and I'm like, well, I'm fixed. It's work. There's a number of books on morning routines, right? So if I'm in a tough spot, what can I control, right? So I've got outside influence. What can I control on the inside and what's going on? Work out. Mm-hmm. I don't care if all you can do is move your fingers, okay? You intentionally do these things. Physically get involved. So when you physically do, you actually chemically release other chemicals in your body. It starts to help, yes. Also, just completing and taking action on things works. Do the thing that you keep putting off and complete it, right? Because it's just sitting there. It's sitting there. It needs to get done. I don't care if it has anything to do with your business or not. Go do it. And then once you do it, you feel completed. What's that?
Like making the bed.
Thank you. Okay, now I got to tell the story. Okay, so was reading a book called Atomic Habits. Love the book. James Clear, great book. And he gets into the habits and routines that we have. And he goes, create a routine and habit. He's really talking about morning routines, but create a routine that really works for you. And for me, I always struggle. I like to delegate and I struggle completing things. And so I created a habit. This has been over a year now, created a habit of starting to make the bed. I always get up behind her. I can't wake up at 5 a.m. or whatever she does. And when I get up, I make the bed. I know it sounds ridiculous and most of you already do this. That's just not been my upbringing. My parents, I didn't make the bed, never did. But for me, what it symbolizes is it's not about making the bed for Mary. It's not about making the bed because I think it looks nice. It's not about any of that. I accomplish something right out of the gate. I finish and I complete something out of the gate. So the impact on my mind is I'm going into the day and I'm completing things. And amazing enough, I shifted that. It's been about a year. And the amount of things I complete now compared to before it's insanity. I mean, it's amazing, but it is the connection there.
So I'm actually going to open it up for questions. If other people have questions, like I said, you can put it in the Q&A. If you want to be brought in live in the Q&A, just type in live and I'll bring you in. I also, like I said, have Facebook up. Sophia says, Eric, it's totally okay to be self-promoting when you have such great wisdom to share with others. Oh, thanks for your transparency and finally coming on the show. You're such a great team. Oh my gosh, I love it. Mick says, realizing that culture development is a top-down process. What counsel can you offer and what tools for engagement are available to baby boomers who still have a few years in them to manage and grow an organization that will be populated with Gen X? Millennials struggling with work ethic versus baby boomer experience, and Gen Z's depression, anxiety.
Yeah, so that's a huge one right now. And it has been for a little bit. So Mick, I love it. Boomers that have a few years, you got many years left in the tank, Mick. And you know, Mick, you're speaking directly to you, you're a little bit of a different leader when you choose to be. And what I mean by that is the authentic Mick, the guy that I know can connect with them to really get them and be empathetic to where they are. That's my belief. I believe you're more equipped than most. But with that being said, I'll talk generally. So the general concept, so boomers are, they grew up through a different time, right? They were self-sufficient. They worked hard. It wasn't about asking for help. There was no thought to even at that time, this kind of need for mental health things, which are going on now that are different. It was a totally different time. You're literally growing up in a different country, mindset, language. Your language is different than somebody that's entering the job force now. And obviously we know technology has advanced all this, it's all moving quicker. So actually it's put more pressure on both ends of this. So boomers, which are at the high end now, are, what I mean by pressure is you've got to do things you don't like to do, more than likely. You've got to take the time to actually understand the issues and their perspective and see it from their point of view to have a chance of being able to connect. Because there's the distance in values, the distance in the way we do things represents a difference in respect is usually how it shows up. So older generation doesn't feel respected. Not like some are going, you should respect me just because I'm older, but that's not it. It's because you've been through it, man. You've got knowledge. You know how things work and don't work, and there's great experience you can bring to the table. The rub is the new generation comes in and what they're brilliant at is not accepting this is the way we've always done it. So they're in conflict with each other. So we got to get to collaboration, or we got to get to where we can have some of the tough conversations. And it's overlapped with what I call general parenting that hasn't been done. My generation didn't parent in a way, and especially my parents' parent generation, right in that range, we parented in a way that created dependency in a lot of cases, and also didn't teach some base level stuff. This isn't everybody. I'm very generalizing right now, obviously. But like you take Gen X and millennials are, I mean, they're in their 30s now. But millennials, the studies go, they're really split into two groups. You've got this ultra focused worker group that kicks butt. They really do. And then you've got the group that's kind of whatever they stayed at home a lot longer. They didn't learn to drive until they were forced to or never did. They just kind of, but they're all about life. They want to get out there. They want to experience things. They travel. They just kind of, it's about the journey and what they're on. And those two groups are in conflict, but then you count that with anyway, you guys get it. So the answer to this is, number one, if you're the experienced leader, you're the one that has to do the changing. And that's hard. So if you're the one that has to do the changing, what is the change you need to make? You need to ask a lot of questions. You need to get really curious. You need to understand where they're coming from, their thought process. And there may be places to challenge that, but you won't be allowed to challenge it unless you have trust. So you build the relationship, build trust, ask a lot of questions, understand. And then obviously there are things that when you need to do, when it needs to happen, it's a directive, sure, but you will have earned the right to give the directive versus commanding all the time, because that's more on the boomers. It's more autocratic, typically, the older we get in the leadership style. It's built on the military having so much success and other reasons, but the end result is you have to shift out of autocratic and get more democratic. And not being political with that, that's actually how they teach it in business school. Democratic in your approach. Ask lots of questions, build relationship, build trust, and you're pushing towards psychological safety so the whole group shares their ideas, thoughts, and what's going on. I don't know if that answered the question, but I'm gonna stop there.
Okay, and then, well, we have lots of questions coming in. Lindsay Guy, which I have a feeling is also Kirill, says, what is Eric's why?
You think it's Kirill? He always asks that question. I do the editing. I see these, if that is. Okay, so this is going to, for those who've been to Bold, you've probably heard this, but they connect. So I'll give you the statement in a second. But my why is to challenge and get people to challenge how they think, how they respond, and how they participate in life. So interesting enough, that translates into the close of Bold. Now we didn't make Bold. It didn't connect back then, but anyway. So it's to defy the status quo, to embrace the uncomfortable, to live my best life, and to truly be all in the conversations, the connections, and what I do for the moment of whatever that is. Thanks for asking, Kirill or Lindsay Guy.
Paul Kuiper, having been lucky enough to know you through some of the growing stages and watching you walk through some of those failures and trials is exactly what legitimizes your training, support, leadership, and advice. Being intentional and genuine creates such a connection. Was there something you had to do every day to rebuild the mentality, a specific practical piece that started the trend back to the daily progress?
Okay, hold on. That middle part I got lost on. The practical piece. Where is that? Read that last part again.
So was there something you had to do every day to rebuild the mentality? So a specific practical piece that started the trend back to the daily progress.
Okay, it's change the meaning of things. So, for example, failure. We were talking about that. Failure doesn't mean failure. Failure means, great, I get to work through something, or it means success, or it means you gotta. So what people do is that we take on what everybody else's point of view is. So when we're struggling, our belief, our connection with that is we're not good enough, we're not deserving, I'm not liked, I'm not accepted, whatever our stuff is, we connect to it. Failure is actually the realization of our stuff from when we were growing up, right? So we have to change the meaning. So our stuff, you know your stuff. Mine, man, high school, holy smoke, I wish there were people on here from high school. One of these days I'll go to a reunion, but I was the guy who ate in the library by himself. I was the guy, I think it was my freshman year, I got locked in my locker I got the two seniors, I assume, that came up, they had Letterman jackets, all I know. They pushed me in the locker. I was face first in my big locker, face first in it for a couple hours till a teacher, I heard heels and I started screaming and they got me out. Like I was that guy. And what I wasn't, it's like, I'm not accepted. I like, people don't like me. Like I'm not worthy and deserving. Those things were so burned into me that and so the answer is I had to change the meaning. When I went to college, I went, this is a fresh start. And I had to like, I don't know where this came from or why I did it, but I just decided, you know what? I'm just not going to be that guy anymore. And I'd walk up to girls. Like I never even talked to a girl. I'd walk up to girls and I go, hi. And I'd look like an idiot. And that was okay for me. And I don't know why that switched, but I know the changing of meaning, I don't know if this is making sense, but if you can shift when, you know, some people go Brussels sprouts gross. If you change it to Brussels sprouts healthy, it's different. And so you get different results. If things that you've got to shift aren't working for you, you shift the meaning that they have. When they show, I was talking to, sorry, I'm going too long on this, but I was coaching a client, I'll leave it there. And what they have is every time they have success, every single time they have success, they start feeling internally, they get this feeling that that's actually failure. That's what they get. So every time they start to get successful, so it's a sabotage of success. So now what we're working on is shifting. Every time they start to feel like, oh my gosh, it's all falling apart. I'm out of control. It's not going to work. I'm not good enough. All that starts to kick in. That's the feeling they're looking for. When that kicks in, it's like, holy cow, I'm on the right path. I'm going in the right direction. Maybe that's not perfect solution, but it works.
Well, and Paul said, change the meaning. It makes absolute sense. Renee said, self-talk molds you. Still say her affirmations.
Awesome.
Misty has a question. Do you have some insight or advice for someone like her who is looking for a great job with a great company culture so that she can be excited and engaged when she works every day? Such as, can I ask certain questions in an interview process about their culture, especially about the current global economic and many employees coming from a place of fear and scarcity?
Yeah. So, well, first off, yeah, ask questions. I mean, ask the questions you want. I think I think where it can get tough is it, you know, that's a situation in an interview where they're evaluating whether they want to work with you. And so if you're asking questions at that point that are challenging them in a way that makes them uncomfortable, they may not understand what you're doing or have the awareness, and in turn, they internalize it as she's a problem or she'd be trouble. So I always look at an interview, that's your chance to sell yourself. Yes, ask questions, but they're thought out in questions that aren't maybe as much about challenging them, but more about understanding them. So instead of saying, you know, do your managers actually care for people? I don't know, I'm making something up. That's an offensive and abrasive type of question in an interview. Instead, you might say, help me understand kind of your philosophies around management. What do you believe in working with people and how does that show up? You know, so if you look up behavioral interview questions, those are questions that the interviewee typically asks the interviewer. However, you can flip those and ask behavioral interview questions of them, open-ended, and kind of wherever they go, they go. If you're going to say, I want the perfect culture stepping in, good luck. Because you know what? They don't exist. There's not a perfect culture. What you got to do is you got to weigh, you know, it's like dating, right? I've got to weigh, there's all these amazing things and I love it. There's going to be some things that don't fit with you. They got to match up enough for it to work. But if you're striving for perfection, looking for the perfect culture, you're not going to be there. First of all, it's not the perfect culture because you're not in it, influencing it. So you're going to shift it anyway once you get in there to some degree.
I have a question in regards to going back into people focus. What happens if a company really wants to invest in their people, but they have absolutely no revenue? Like they literally have no extra revenue. What can they do to inspire, to give back into their people?
Okay, so zero revenue, then we got to look for free information, free inspiration. So that's everywhere, right? So you say they're people. So if they have zero revenue, they don't have a lot of people, right? So, or if they won't have them long, more than likely, unless they solve that. So again, it goes back, to me, it goes back into growth mindset versus fixed mindset. The growth mindset goes, how do I, right? And as soon as you ask, how do I start to challenge and grow, you're going to come up with solutions based on your revenue point. If you have a little bit of money, then I would encourage you to invest in yourself, not your team first. And I know that sounds selfish and it sounds, backwards, but it's not, because you as the leader, owner, whoever you are, you have the biggest influence of the organization. We got to raise your capability to raise everybody else. So most people think in organization, it's like, if I train all my people and they get better, we get better, which is kind of true. But if you do that, let's say you're the top of the company and you raise their level, you squeeze the company. And it actually will create friction and challenge. You have to keep raising the top. If the bottom comes up, top has to go up with them. But interesting enough, if you raise the top, it forms a gap. It's almost like suction. So in that gap, they will step into it. They will also leave. Those are the two things that will happen. And you want both. So you raise your level on your performance. You learn something new. You grow, you develop, you raise your lid, you come back, you start applying these things. People notice it and they go, whoa, that's a lot. I can't handle it. They leave. And that's okay. We want that. There's certain people that aren't going to fit as you grow and develop. But the worst thing that can happen is you do this, they don't leave and they stay, and then they don't fit, or you won't let them quit. Or you've got that employee that's been with you for 20 years. They're not growing and developing. You're not helping them grow and develop, and they don't want to, yet you act like it's not happening in the company. It's stifling the whole company. They're empowering those people around them to not learn and grow, to not develop. So set the tone from the beginning, create a growth mindset, do whatever you can. You can go on, LinkedIn now with all their training and video almost costs nothing. There's so many ways to develop yourself. Books, free books, they're out there everywhere. Find your favorite person, follow them on Instagram, look at their feeds. It's unlimited what you can do.
Well, that also reminds me of the Dale Cohn of experience theory, right? That so we retain information by actually hearing, seeing, applying, have an emotional connection, but where it really sticks is when we actually teach it. So you talk about raising your lid, that level, the more a leader does that and they teach it, now you're empowering your team, which grows along with you. Yep. And it's having the right people within the right culture.
Yep, for sure.
So we have just a couple more minutes before this ends. So if you have any last minute questions, go ahead and put them now. And in the meantime, Eric, just final thoughts, things that were just swirling in you that you weren't asked or that you would like to share.
Well,
I'll set a timer.
What's that?
I'll set a timer.
You're setting time. Oh, thanks. Now I don't have anything planned here. I just, my passion, I get so excited for watching the lights come on for people, and I say leaders. And why I say leader, I don't just mean the top of a company. I mean anywhere in an organization. How do they influence? How do they make a difference? And what gosh, you talked about at the beginning, I don't think about it that way, but I've been in and out of companies, seeing different leaders in the military and all over the place for over 20 years. And when you start, there's certain patterns that show up, and yeah, there's personalities, there's all those things, but for the most part, people seem to be, it's like they're searching to become successful, to be a leader, to be on top, to be, they're striving for this thing. And so they give themselves the excuse that they don't have to be the best version of themselves because they're not there yet. And it's just the most backward point of view. But I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean it's backwards. It doesn't work that way. We don't get there and then all of a sudden all these special skills and we're all of a sudden better. And those that believe that, when they do get there, arrogance sets in, ego sets in, and they think they've arrived. It's the opposite. It's like, know your strengths and your weaknesses, because you're always going to have some. They may change, but you got strengths and you got weaknesses, and be not just humble about it, but authentic and dive in and own your shit. And when you do it, people get it. everybody can relate with that. But when we come in as a leader and we want to be important and we want to, and I say all this from personal experience, by the way, this isn't a, but when my whole, and by the way, a leader who's doing it to be important, a leader who needs the authority and the significance all the time, they're never filled up in that category, are doing it. And I'm telling you, this is 100% personal experience. They're doing it because they're insecure underneath. They don't feel like they're enough. Therefore, they have to prove they're enough. And so my encouragement, you want to change, I don't know, people talk about we need to change the political system. We need to change the country, the values, all the things that are going on, your organization. Where does it start? It starts with us, me as an individual, making a decision to say, you know what, I'm going to show up as my best version of me, whatever that is today. And I'm going to do something that makes it so tomorrow I have a better version of me that I show up even better. And I bust my butt to be that. And when I fall off, I get back on. I don't beat my, it's not like I'm a failure. It's just hop back on and go. And if we did that one thing, if we shifted everything, all these issues, they go away. They do, because we're different people at that point. We're problem solving. We're not blaming. You look at society today, and it doesn't matter where you look, what side of the aisle you sit on, whatever's going on, we want to blame other people for our problems. And that's not it. That is a recipe for failure. We will sit there in this turmoil of just blaming and whatever. You might be right. Somebody else did something to you. So what? What are we going to do now? How do we make this better? How do we move forward? How do we, whatever it is, how do we start moving in that direction? That's my soapbox.
And I can attest to that. Just knowing you, living with you, being married to you, that's how you show up every day. You're the one that always says, make me emotional. What's my part? What's my part? And how can I shift and change? And, it's people like you, Eric, that, and I've always said this, is that you inspire me. Like, to do this together is that we give people hope, right? But it's people who are like-minded, and it's not just a soapbox. It's not just pretty words. This is how you live your life. And that's why so many people really respect you, because it is authentic leadership. It's not, it's not that you don't fail. You do, we all do, but you're the one that's willing to get back up and to go after it, to own it, just like what Paul was saying, you change your mindset. You might not like it. There are times that you get so angry. It's like, I don't want to, but you go back and do, what's my part? What did I do? How did I create this? What can I do better? And that's one of the most things that I absolutely love and respect about you. And I'm just grateful. I'm grateful to do Driven with you. I'm grateful that you said yes, that people actually get to see you in a different way, because you don't like you don't like the light, but you are a light.
You always make people cry. Damn you. Thanks, man.
You're welcome. I know there was a couple more questions, and I'm gonna put it out there. I'm crying too. So there's a feedback poll. There was a couple. Where did they go? They just disappeared. There was so many questions. I'm sorry if we didn't answer them. Eric's gonna go back and answer them online live. And I just want to say thank you for everyone who showed up. I just want to thank you again, Eric, for just being you. And let's do this again.
Oh, we flip it. It's my turn to interview you.
I can do that.
Yeah? Okay.
You'll get a different conversation.
Oh, tell me about it. I know. Anyway. All right. Great to not see all of you, but great to see you. So thanks for being on.
Thanks, everyone. And we will see you next Tuesday with Matt Sully as he talks about MOLO, more of, less of.
I want to know your why, Matt.
All right, everyone, have a great day.